Hello, everybody. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight for the Adventure Speaker Series. I'm Erin Sheritz, Outdoor Recreation Program Manager for Wright State University. The Adventure Speaker Series and the Adventure Summit are both partnership productions of Five Rivers Metro Parks and Wright State University. We alternate every year between the Adventure Summit and the Adventure Speaker Series. The Adventure Summit is a 2-day event that takes place at Wright State University, while the Speaker Series is typically 3 to 5 presentations spaced out throughout the winter at various venues locally. Tonight, our Speaker Series will continue to run tonight and the next 5 Thursdays through April 22nd. You can find details for the upcoming presentations and panel discussions at theadventuresummit.com or by following the Adventure Summit on Facebook and Instagram. During the presentation, we ask that you keep your audio on mute and video off so everyone can see our panelists. You'll also be able to ask questions in the chat box, and we will try to get to as many as we can. Now, I introduce to you Aubrey, our moderator from Redbudsuds, who will be moderating the panel this evening. Thank you, Aubrey.
Aubrey, you're muted right now.
Thank you, Shannon. Oh my goodness. Welcome to Toddler Life. My name is Aubrey. I'm coming to you all from Canton, Ohio. I've muted myself because my toddler, I'm sort of hiding from him at the moment. Thank goodness for a wonderful and capable dad who's putting him to bed. But just wanted to extend a very warm welcome to everyone who is here tonight. It's, you know, were we all sitting in a room together, we would be able to see your all's faces and your smiles and all of that. We miss that greatly, but we are so glad that you're able to cozy up with whatever your favorite beverage is, in your PJs or whatever makes you happy, and join us for a lively and hopefully somewhat educational conversation tonight as well. So, as I said, I'm Aubrey. I am the founder of Redbudsuds. I've participated in a bunch of different events with the Outdoor Summit, or sorry, the Adventure Summit and the Outdoor Experience in Dayton. And it is my great pleasure to be here tonight with Shannon and Amber and Tina. I'm gonna let each of you introduce yourselves. Let's see, let's start with Tina. And just for a quick little overview, we have like a student, we have a business owner, we have Amber, she's got a corporate job. So we've got a nice mix here of the variety of options that work for working and traveling. So Tina, why don't you start us off and introduce yourself, where you're coming from.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tina. I'm a senior at Wright State. My last semester, so with everything being online, I just decided to take it on the road. I borrowed a Ford Transit Connect van from my Uncle Dale, shout out Uncle Dale, and I started in Florida and I found my way to California is where I currently am. Yeah.
And how about you, Amber?
Yes, so I'm based in Dallas, Texas. I work a corporate job, an 8-to-5 job, and that allows me to work anywhere in the U.S. as long as I work Central Time hours. So I'm basically a virtual assistant to 6 executives and help them with whatever they need.
Very nice. And Amber, what is your home on the road?
So I mostly stay in hotels, and then also I crash with my parents. They live full-time in an RV, so I go with them on trips a lot too.
Nice, very cool. And how about you, Shannon?
Hey guys, I'm Shannon. So I own a screen printing company, and also I own Surf Dayton, which we do river surf lessons here in town. I am based in Dayton now, but for the last 4 years, before 2020, I basically lived in my van, traveling all over the country, working as a graphic designer, doing contract work for a couple different outdoor brands. So that allowed me to just kind of travel and surf and have fun. And then I just kind of worked a little bit, on the side to, pay my bills. So.
Very cool. And just for a little intro of where I'm coming from as well, I'm moderating the conversation tonight. But I've stepped my toes in the waters of living on the road and working on the road as well. A number of years ago, when my husband and I were first married, we took about a year and a half, lived in a van. We named it Goliath. It was an Astro van, fabulous vehicle. And we basically worked seasonally, and then on the shoulder season, spring and summer, traveled the country to climb, and did a little bit of part-time work virtually for some marketing and trip planning for a guide organization. So there's lots of ways to do it, lots of ways to make it happen. As we kind of gathered some questions from the three of you to figure out, what are the most common questions that people ask. I'm going to start out with a couple of those, and then we're going to give some time for all of you who are listening in to be able to ask your own questions as well. So the questions we're going to start with kind of fit under the categories of like, well, the logistics, like, what do you do? You guys have kind of answered that a little bit already. How do you do it? And where do you do it from? And then we're going to get into some of the questions of why. Why would you work and travel? Some of those answers are kind of obvious, like, well, duh, it would be fun. But when you get into like what it actually looks like, it's not always that fun. So where does that motivation for staying to your task and sticking with it when the going gets tough, or when you're cold or lonely or whatever? And then we're going to leave some good time for some storytelling as well. So that's kind of what we're looking at. So let's maybe start with you, Shannon. Can you start out by telling us why you choose when you're on the road to be living this kind of adventure life?
Well, basically, I love surfing and paddleboarding, so I do a lot of whitewater as well. And basically got to the point where every weekend I was traveling 7 hours, 14 hours round trip just to do a weekend trip in Tennessee or West Virginia or something. And I just wanted to do that full time. So having my screen printing company, it's kind of a day-to-day business where it's, you kind of have to be there. But luckily I was able to have business partners and get a manager in place where I could take a step back. Obviously I don't get paid a full salary if I'm not working there full time. So I was able to find a graphic design job doing contract work for a couple different outdoor brands. And yeah, I just wanted to travel and surf, and the motivation sometimes is hard to find the motivation to work, but like if you wake up at a beautiful place, I could do my surf, have a couple sessions, work on my laptop for a couple hours, then get back to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these days Instagram makes it all look so gorgeous and so beautiful. And I'm sure that all of you can attest to the fact that it does not always look like the pictures.
No, it definitely does not.
But definitely it's cool to hear that drive of like, why do you do this? Well, because you love what you are able to do through it.
Exactly.
Yeah. How about you, Amber? Why do you choose to live and work on the road?
Yeah, so 3 years ago, I did a trip to Bali, and over there it's very popular for just a lot of remote workers, and it's full of a community of them, and that inspired me to want to travel more and work online. So I was like, what can I do to make this a possibility? And so I found this job last year, love it, and taking advantage of being able to work and travel as much as possible. There's so much to see out there, so I wanted to do, travel is my passion, and work just pays the bills basically.
And how about you, Tina? What inspired you to hit the road as a student?
I owe a lot to the Outdoor Resource Center at Wright State, because that's what kind of got my love in the outdoors and backpacking and stuff, which inspired a 3-week trip in my car where I did backpacking and stuff over the summer. And then after sitting at home on the computer staring at a screen for a semester, I was like, I could do my classes anywhere. So why not just get a van and go places and do it? And it's the best decision I think I could have made and used with this time.
Yeah, I think that's really admirable. I mean, COVID and the realities of needing to do virtual everything, it definitely has its downsides, but if you're gonna make the most of it, make lemonade. That's the way to do it. So let's talk logistics a little bit. you know, there's plenty of places that you can travel that where internet might be spotty or where you might not have the consistency of knowing that you're going to get a good connection. Tina, can you talk us through what that's been like for you, just managing the logistics of your coursework and actually having access to the internet so you can do your work? What has that been like, and how do you do that?
Yeah, it's definitely been like a trial and error and like learn as I go. But I have a hotspot on my phone that's been very helpful. Like I was outside of Sequoia National Forest, and I didn't really leave where I was for a few days because I had good enough service, so I could just do my classes in the mountains there. And then sometimes it's like looking up like my favorites are like Starbucks, McDonald's, Panera, like just using their Wi-Fi parking in their parking lots. Yeah, a lot of planning goes into it, but it's also, I can be a little like what's the word?
Spontaneous.
Spontaneous, thank you. Oh my gosh. With like where I want to go, because I think it's easier to find like service and Wi-Fi than I thought it would be.
Yeah, which actually kind of skips over one of the questions I was going to ask you all. Kind of where are it might be good just to get this out here so people have a sense of where you guys are traveling. Are we talking, you know, like backcountry camping kind of things? Are we talking, you know, you like to travel in cities, so you're always in urban environments? We talking, you know, where are, Tina, we'll just start with you. You know, where have been the places that you found yourself adventuring?
I think I've been like kind of all over the place. I do appreciate like if I can get service in the backcountry, I would much prefer that. I went to Padre Island National Shore in Texas, and they're like beach parking camping. Didn't have service at, so I like would walk a mile down the beach to the visitor center and use their Wi-Fi for class. So there are things like that I can do. But then obviously, like being in a city or more urban environment, it's a lot easier to have class and whatnot.
Definitely. So I'm just going to keep writing this conversation, Tina, for just a moment. I promise, Amber and Shannon, I'm not forgetting about you all. So I'm curious, there's a lot of pressure when you're a student and also when you're working professionally to make sure that you do have internet when you need it. And so I'm curious how long you stay in one place before moving to another. You know, if you kind of find a sweet spot, are you just kind of like, oh, that's great, I'm going to hang here for, you know, a couple of weeks? Or do you really plan out sooner moves than that, quicker moves than that? Curious what that flow looks like for you.
Yeah, I do plan out a lot. It's mostly Monday, Wednesday, Friday are like my busy schedules where I have actual like in person like video classes. So I know that those days are the days that ahead of time I need to get to whatever location I am and make sure that I have like stable internet to do that. But then Tuesday, Thursdays, the weekends are kind of where I can just be wherever, or even just like I spend Sunday morning in a parking lot doing schoolwork. So then by like noon, I can go and hike somewhere. Yeah.
Awesome. Amber, let's bump over to you. You have a much different approach and a different type of job. Talk us through the logistics of managing, you know, being a professional while traveling.
Yes, so for my Wi-Fi, I have a Verizon Jetpack. You buy it outright, and then you pay $65 per month for the Wi-Fi. So wherever there is Verizon self-service, it works. I use that. And then since a lot of times I do stay at hotels, you get pretty good Wi-Fi there. And then if I stay at Airbnbs, I read the reviews to make sure Wi-Fi is stable, or I'll ping the host to make sure they have decent Wi-Fi before staying there, since I do need service. Sometimes I'll go to coffee shops, but those will be the days I don't have Zoom calls, since it is a corporate job. A lot of it is confidential, so I don't want to be in public when I'm on a Zoom call discussing information and whatnot. And then to have a like professional background, I just, you know, maybe put a Zoom background on so you don't see I'm in the middle of nowhere or whatnot. But it kind of works out though, especially if being at a hotel is not too bad.
Well, and tell us, Amber, where you have been traveling recently. Kind of where are your adventure destination go-tos, your favorite spots?
Yeah, so this last year I spent 2 months in Georgia because that's where my parents mostly are. I've been to Florida, Michigan, and then I did a road trip to Colorado, and we kind of went throughout the whole state of Colorado, seeing up different spots. And then Texas has a lot to offer, so I've been doing a lot of weekend trips throughout Texas as well.
How was that cold snap?
Yeah, we got an unexpected winter storm that kind of knocked out our power for a whole week. So that was, challenge for Texas. We're not used to winter storms, but it worked out.
For sure. Cool. Shannon, let's bump over to you. Tell us about your logistics of internet connection, chasing those surf waves, does that take you to places where internet connection is pretty spotty and pretty hard to find?
Sometimes. So basically, I upgraded my Sprint plan to have unlimited data. So I'm able to tether. And then I also have an iPad that actually has its own data. So if I, do have an issue for some reason, sometimes my phone might not have service, but my iPad does. So it works out. I've never had an issue where I didn't have service. Thankfully, like my schedule with doing graphic design work remotely, I can pretty surf all day, but then I might spend 5-6 hours till 3 a.m. in my van doing work because I kind of can make my own schedule. So that is really beneficial. And then a lot of times I might be working on a project where I don't even need Wi-Fi, and then I just have to upload it to send it over to get approval or get changes or something like that. So yeah, I haven't really had too many issues, but I have been, in the front seat of my van, sitting there working for hours on end in like a hot, blistering sun, in the middle of the Teton Mountains, But I've also been like parked at a beach doing work, in the parking lot right next to the beach. So it's kind of best of both worlds. My schedule, basically, I kind of follow the Whitewater tour. So there's a lot of like events in Tennessee around there in April and May, and then I always jump over to Colorado. There's like 7 weeks there's a festival every single weekend. So I basically just kind of river surf in between, hit all the festivals, and then, maybe go up to Wyoming or something like that. And then I've always kind of made it back to Dayton for like August, September, and then Golly season starts in West Virginia. And then from there, all winter, I get a surf in the ocean, usually South Carolina or Florida. And then I just start the whole cycle back over again. So I did that for about 3 years straight.
Very cool. Okay, so burning question here. What about theft? Do you guys worry about having all of your precious valuables in your vehicle? Like, how do you manage that? And I'm just gonna leave this open. Shannon, it looks like you're ready to jump right in. We'll start with you.
Well, the good thing is if you live in your van's kind of always with you. But basically, I haven't had any issues. I actually have had more issues getting theft here in Dayton than when I was traveling. But one fun story, I was parked and I woke up in the middle of the night because I thought my dog was up in the front seat. And I got up to check on her and I tripped over her, which means she was not in the front seat. And somebody was in front of my van stealing all my change, which led to a little tussle, but he ended up just being an old homeless man that was just stealing my change. So I actually ended up feeling kind of bad that I scared him more than he scared me. But yeah, always remember to lock your car, always lock your van, even when you're inside it. That it's a big lesson I learned that night, to always lock your van when you're inside it.
How about the others of you? Amber, Tina, any good stories?
Nothing like that. Nothing too crazy. No, I had issues because, if we go hiking or do day activities, if we have like a blanket or jackets, we kind of cover the items up to make it not too obvious. There's a lot of, suitcases or camera gear in there. But other than that, I take it inside as much as I can. But I haven't had issues on the road. I don't know about you, Tina.
No, not really. I have like a little like curtain here and I like some reflectix that I set up over there so you can't really like see in when I am parked anywhere. The only thing that happened, I was in a grocery store parking lot and I was like in the driver's seat, like getting my reusable bag all ready to go, and someone opened my driver's side door and I was so freaked out and I thought it was like, is someone gonna like steal my van right now in the middle of a parking lot, but it was a guy that thought that my van was his van, and he had a very similar white Ford Transit parked like 5 spaces away. But besides that, knock on wood, I've not had any issues. So
Nice. I really like, Tina, your advice of just kind of keeping windows and doors, like keeping things out of sight as much as possible. When we were traveling, we did a lot of that. And we actually did have an instance. We went to climbing areas. We were kind of following the climbing season. And so, you usually take with you most of your gear, but inevitably there's some gear you're leaving in the car, and people know that climbing gear is expensive. And so that was something we actually did have to deal with. A break-in at one point and driving a couple hours to get the window replaced and all of that. But fortunately, they didn't really find anything. We worked hard to keep stuff hidden. You kind of find ways to hide things. And like Shannon said, like, it's not like we were gone for that long, because at the end of the day, we're coming back because it's where we're going to be sleeping. But
Yep.
Cool. Very good. Well, I think it would be interesting to hear you guys speak to the planning aspect of it. Like, how do you choose where you go? And then are you the kind of people where it's like, exactly where it's going to be, how long you're going to be there, where you're going to find everything you need? Or do you just kind of like wing it and show up? I think in my experience, we've lived in sort of both of those camps. The wing it and show up can be really fun when you're just like, I don't really know what the day is going to hold. I think we're going to stay here for another week. And then bad weather rolls in by 6 o'clock in the evening and you're off to the next state by nightfall. That's really fun at a certain time of life. But right now, with a little kiddo, there's a lot more that we have to plan. So I'm signing up to listen to the planners of you, to take some notes too. So let's hear it. Maybe Amber, you can start and let us know what planning looks like for you.
Yeah, so I'm definitely a planner. So I do more of a detailed itinerary. So I get inspo from like Instagram or Pinterest or travel blogs of like a place I want to go to. And then I go in Excel and like list my days out, what activities, like entry fees, how much it costs to get like an national park or maybe a tour or something like that. So I kind of plan out all the details, but then if I get somewhere, I ask people around like, oh, what's something to do? Because you never know, there could be something like new that the locals know, but I don't. But no, I usually plan out the details to a T. But it's just because I have like a certain amount of time sometimes on trips, or if I take PTO, only have so many time. So I kind of go more to a detailed plan.
How about you, Shannon?
I do not really have much of a plan when I traveled. So, but I mean, I kind of always knew I was staying in the van. It was more planning out where to park that night. Obviously, if you're in the East Coast, or especially on the coast, you can't just stealth camp unless you're at maybe Walmart. Even that's risky. So generally, I had to hit up a friend, park in their driveway or in front of their house, or book a campground or a campsite. But when you're out west, you don't really have to do that as much. But I like to friend hop. I want to see all my friends that I have all over the country. So they're more than welcome. I don't even stay in their house usually. I just, sleep outside in my van still, but I'm still able to see my friends and everything. But yeah, I don't really like to plan. I've been to a couple of towns, like really small towns, not knowing where I'm going to park, and I meet somebody and I ask them, or I go to the local brewery and make friends. And I've met a lot of friends that way, just by like, hey, do you know where I could park? And they obviously offer up in front of their house.
Nice. It's a great way to see people.
Yeah.
How about you, Tina?
yeah, I'm usually very much a planner, so I was trying to like use this as an experience to practice to just go with the flow and be okay with things changing. I made a video for the ORC about like apps that I use to find places to like camp or just like spend the night that are safe and free. And I've only paid for a campsite once so far. I've parked in a few friends' driveways, been really lucky in that way. But I changed my plans a lot, probably more than I should. And I like call my mom every time. I'm like, remember how I said I was going this place? Well, I'm going not that place anymore. But I kind of like the like spontaneity, and it, like Shannon said, it's just like, where do I park and sleep for the night?
Yeah. So this is bringing up two other really important topics, I think. One of them, which by the way, Amber, it's good to have you back. I don't know what happened there, but I'm glad you made your way back in.
Yeah, I don't know. Wi-Fi issues, maybe.
Yes, case in point here. So one of the questions is budget. And I'll let you guys speak as broadly or as specifically as you want. Shannon, one of the questions that you said people often ask you is, how much money do you really need to be able to live and work remotely? I would love to hear you guys talk about that aspect. Do you budget a lot? Is there a number that you've been like, this is the magic one? Or yeah, just what you feel comfortable sharing in terms of how do you make that work? Tina, I'm gonna go ahead and let you start with that one this time.
Yeah, so last semester, everything like being online, I moved home with my parents. I worked a lot, multiple jobs, and saved a lot of money. And then being a student on the budget, I definitely like cut corners in ways of like I cook a lot of my own food. I haven't paid to shower anywhere because I just do a makeshift shower, or I have like a little like portable thing that I just hang up and but just like little things like that. And then I'm thankful to have a little bit of an income working at the ORC, and I teach a kids musical theater class on the weekends, so that pretty much pays for my gas every week. So I'm not, as a student, I'm kind of like cutting even, so it's kind of worked out.
Cool. How about you, Amber? Do you want to jump in next?
Yeah, so I think it really depends how much you want to spend, because you can go spend a lot or you spend a little. There's so many corners you can cut, or, I have a travel credit card, so I earn free points to either spend on flights or hotels as well. So that saves a lot. And then, there's different loyalty programs you can join too, like every airline I join, because then you earn free miles as well. So that saves. But I think it depends. I travel a lot with friends too, so that cuts the cost in half for how many people you travel with. So that helps them. But I don't know. I don't like to spend too much, because I'm like, well, there's always so many other places to visit, or, you don't want to spend everything on it. So I think you can make whatever your budget is, you can make it possible.
I like that advice. How about you, Shannon?
I'd like to say I penny pinch and save, but sometimes I don't when I'm traveling. I might drop $30 at the local brewery, because I've never been there before, or something like that. But if I was living in my house, and I was actually renting my house out too, so I was actually making a little bit of money off that as well on top of my income. But I mean, I wasn't spending $1,000 on mortgage or my utilities, and so that money was I'm not paying that. So a lot of times, I still cooked in my van. I didn't pay for campsites as much. I stayed at friends' houses, so I really didn't spend that much. I'm also not driving everywhere where I'm spending everything on gas. I'm usually just kind of like point A to point B, not going back and forth. But sometimes, a couple days I might book a campsite where they had a hot tub and a pool, and I'm like, I'm gonna sit here for 2 days and relax. So I was able to afford to, splurge when I needed it. But I'd also go a week where I didn't spend anything.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you guys all reflect, because it's definitely bringing back very vivid memories for me when we were spending our time on the road, and on a very, we were trying to pinch as many pennies as we could. And it was kind of impressive to me how quickly things could add up, especially when you're really watching it carefully. And so I think my 2 cents that I would give, to anyone who's kind of pondering these things is really look at, how much do you think you're going to need? How much do you think you're going to have access to? And then just kind of run the numbers, and then pay attention as you're going. Because it really is, like Shannon, like you said, it's surprising where you actually save without even trying, because some of your regular living expenses are gone. But in other ways, it's kind of surprising how fast, I always remember being surprised. We tried to do a lot of our cooking ourselves, as a way of saving money, and plus it's kind of fun. We enjoy that. But when you're going to the grocery store and you buy I don't know, a thing of flour. If you buy like the big one, you save a lot more money than if you just buy like a little thing of flour. So buying like things in little bits and pieces, because we didn't have a ton of space to store stuff, we ended up spending a lot more than we would have in just regular groceries when we, you know, had access to our normal pantry. So yeah, just it's interesting how those things sort of shift. Cool. Well, let's jump to a question about safety. What safety tips do you have for anyone that would be thinking about doing this? We touched on it a little bit with, you know, just wanting to make sure that you're camping in good places or keeping your stuff hidden from view. But what are some pointers that you'd have for anyone, things that you might not have thought about before getting started on the road, that you've come across? And we'll go the opposite direction. So Shannon, we'll let you start with this one.
Obviously security is a big issue, and kind of knowing where to park is like really helpful, because I don't want to get that knock on my van window in the middle of the night and have to move and then not know where to go. So before I go to sleep at night, I'm always very sure of where I'm parked and that I'm safe. Obviously always lock your vehicle, and, you know, shades, security, curtains in the back window. So basically if someone came around my van, they're not gonna be able to see inside at all, because I put up, you know, reflective windshield screens and window screens and everything, so no one can actually see inside. I think that's the biggest thing. But yeah, that's it. Just kind of be smart. Obviously I'm a privileged white male, so I think I'm kind of fortunate in that, where I don't have as many issues or people that, you know, would have more trouble, you know, traveling alone as a single female or something like that.
Amber?
Yes, so I like, if I'm on the road getting gas, and make sure it's like a well lit place. I always like stopping at Love's because they're usually well lit, and they have a dog park for my dog. Then I carry pepper spray, and then for hotels, there's two different like tools that people can get. There's one is like a door stop, and you put it like under the door, and if it opens up, it sets off an alarm. Or there's another tool that goes in the door. You like latch it, so it prevents the hotel door opening up. So those are two good ones, just so you feel safe and no one can barge into your hotel room. So those are my 3 little tricks.
Thanks. Tina?
Yeah. One thing that I do, my location is always shared with my mom and one of my best friends. And I definitely like have to like tell myself like to say no to doing like certain things I want to, like if there's a specific hike that I want to go on but I don't have service, or I'm like, oh, might not be a good idea to be here alone. I always carry pepper spray, sometimes a knife with me. Haven't had to use them, but it just makes me feel safer. And then also being like having an Ohio license plate means that people are all from Ohio see like just oh, where are you from in Ohio? Like it's just like magnets. It does not matter where you go. So I just kind of like create like a character, and usually they'll like ask me questions and I can just say yes. They'll be like, oh, you're from Ohio, like you go to OSU? And I'm like, yes, yep, I absolutely go to OSU, but I'll never like give like personal information and stuff like that. But just like things that like I might not have thought about beforehand, but I don't want anyone stalking me on Facebook or following me, or, you know.
Yeah, great advice. And it's so funny you mentioned that, Tina, because I'm from Virginia originally. And when I was doing the on the road living, you know, I was kind of between Virginia and Minnesota. Now that I live in Ohio, I kid you not, like people, it's different. Like being from Ohio now, you find people like you don't from other states. It's just funny. There's this like interesting camaraderie. There's people from Ohio literally everywhere. It's kind of cool. Never thought I would say that, being somewhat of a trans myself, but I'm happy to be in the Ohio family now. I'm gonna just own it. Do you guys, I think it's interesting also what you mentioned, Tina, about giving kind of like a code name or a trail name or not your real name. I think for, you know, certain people, you know, we have to be more mindful of just that personal safety than others, depending on your privilege. And I know right now there's a lot of conversation around people of color and safety in the outdoors. And I've heard a variety of people talking about, and I've even done this myself as a female, doing things or dressing in a certain way that you know will like create like surprising trust or connection, like overabundantly friendly, or going out of your way to like just be approachable, basically, so that people don't see you as a threat, or yeah, that kind of thing. It's just interesting, the types of things that you pick up on when you spend time outside. I know that there are also, I wish I could remember her name, but I can't. There's a woman who teaches some self-defense and self-confidence kinds of classes. She has an Instagram account. It's phenomenal. It'll come to me as soon as this is over. But just kind of being aware of your posture, can really communicate a lot in terms of whether you're vulnerable or not. But yeah, definitely, Tina, I appreciate what you said about, sometimes you have to make choices that aren't necessarily the ones you'd want to make, but knowing, you got to trust your gut, and you got to know what feels like, yeah, I can stand behind this, or, I should probably do this in the company of some other Ohioans or something. Cool. Well, it would be kind of, since we're sort of in the safety topic, good to touch base about safety precautions that you've done because of COVID. Tina, I know that you've had a lot. You've been really thoughtful about this. If you'd want to give any tips, it feels like we're coming close to the end of having to be quite so careful with vaccines being more prevalent and all that, but we're still in a time where it's pretty important to be thoughtful and considerate. So, Tina, tell us what your COVID tips are.
Yeah, basically just, this is where like a lot of research comes in, where like the places that I'm going, like I won't choose places that are super populated, or like when I was in Florida, and also it kind of like took me like getting there to figure it out, but I realized like, oh, like the beaches aren't really busy until 8 a.m. So I have whenever I want to get up and go to the beach until 8 a.m. until there are more people around. So just finding, I've gone to like cities and stuff before and like seen so many people and been super overwhelmed and been like, no, I'm just gonna go back to the wilderness and be remote and around no one. And that does get a little bit lonely sometimes, but I know that I wouldn't be able to do this unless I was taking all those precautions and not being around people. And then visiting friends has been really wonderful, but it's also just like well, I'm going to park in your driveway and sleep in my van in your driveway, and we're going to visit distantly, but like at least we get to safely visit each other.
Thanks for that. Shannon and Amber, do you have anything to add from things that you've experienced?
Unfortunately, COVID actually had the opposite effect on me. I actually had to come back to Dayton because my business, like I had to like kind of handle things while, we were shut down, and I still kind of kept things afloat while, basically all my employees were laid off until we could bring them back. So COVID kind of had the opposite effect for me. So I didn't get to travel.
Yeah, I just say being out in nature, because I mean, there's so many opportunities. You're not around people, so that helps a lot if you want to, not be so close to everybody. And just kind of looking up different places. Like, I know Florida's a hot spot, especially with spring break coming around. So if you want to stay away, look at different holidays or events that could be happening. And then I always just carry, hand sanitizer, extra mask, wipes to wipe everything down wherever I go. So I just be really cautious of all that as well.
So we've mentioned it already in the chat that if you guys have any questions, to just let them roll. We have a couple that have popped up already, but I'm gonna definitely give anyone who's been listening in and your thoughts as you're thinking about your own trips that you're hoping to take, some of the unanswered problems that you just haven't been able to quite sort out, or just things you'd like to hear from Shannon, Amber, and Tina about. Pop those questions in the chat now. And before we open it up to those questions, I just want to throw out one more kind of storytelling opportunity for the three of you. What would you say are, you can pick to answer either one or both, either one of your like top favorite memories of just like, oh, this is the life, or on the flip side, one of those like, oh crap, I can't believe this is what is happening right now. Why did I ever think that this was a good idea? It'd be interesting to hear one or both of those. So I'm going to let you guys chime in as you feel so inspired.
I can go first. I think one of my best moments is I went to Wyoming and surfed a particular river wave on the Snake River that was just amazing. And for 2 weeks straight, I surfed for 9 hours a day, got to like stay for free in one of the national forests. And I saved a ton of money because I didn't spend any money. And there is just a perfect amount of solitude, but I also got to meet some locals and like other surfers, and just I had a ball. Like I did not want to leave that wave. Probably one of my worst, I mean, not my worst, it really wasn't that bad, but you know, with living in a van and traveling, you kind of get lonely. And so I did have a couple days during like a winter storm, and I was in North Carolina on the coast, and I was like, man, I just need some human interaction. The whole town shut down, and I ended up driving through like through the night into through a winter storm to visit a buddy like 7 hours away, just to like hang out and just enjoy some time with a friend.
Truly. What makes solitude so great is also kind of a giant thing sometimes.
Yeah.
Amber, Tina?
I guess this year my favorite trip was probably Colorado, just because I was able to see a friend I haven't seen in a while, and just getting back on the road, because I know COVID has canceled a lot of plans probably for most of us, and that was kind of the first big trip of this year. So it's just fun to explore a new state, get out in nature. I've been to Colorado, but not did as much as I did that time. So it's just fun to kind of relive the travel, since I know everything's been affected, and just felt freeing to be in nature. It's always fun to, clear your mind, be in peace. So that was probably the best trip, lately.
Yeah, one of my favorite days was I went to Big Bend National Park, and I hiked up to one of the peaks, and I hiked back down, and I had to really like plan this, because it was like a 10-mile hike, and then once I got down, I had like an hour to like cook dinner, and then I logged on for a rehearsal for a Zoom production that I was doing through my theater program, and it was just like such a like I was at the top of the mountain. I was like, oh my God, this is so cool! Look at all this nature, and like 2 hours I have a rehearsal. Like it's just the best of both worlds. I can't believe that I get to like do this. So yeah, stuff like that. It's just so cool.
Was it Emery Peak?
It was Emery Peak, yeah.
Yeah, I've been there. It's awesome.
Very cool. Well, I don't want to, Tina and Amber, I don't want to have either of you miss the opportunity to talk about any low lights. So just going to give you last call on that one.
I just can't think of one off the top of my head, but it'll probably come later, of course. But I don't know.
I've made so many mistakes, but I've learned so much from them. But my first mistake was, I think it was New Year's Eve. It was when I was getting overwhelmed in Florida, and like Shannon was saying, there's no place to park. There's no place to for free to camp. And so I signed up for like a free permit, and I get there, and the like host is coming around to check permits, and I didn't realize I had signed up for an equestrian permit. I thought that was like a name of the campsite, but that meant that I had to have a horse, and because I obviously did not have a horse, I was not allowed to stay there. So I was politely asked to leave. So I had to find another campsite. But just like little things like that, where I'm upset about it for like a minute, and then I'm like, this is kind of funny. Like at least I got like a good story. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have some questions coming in here, and maybe depending on how quickly we burn through them, we might have the opportunity for a little bit more storytelling. So let's see, I'm going all the way back to the beginning of the chat to make sure I don't miss anything. Here we go. First question. Well, this is a comment. I like Amber's work/life philosophy. So well done, Amber. Tina, do you ever go to libraries or their parking lots to get your internet access?
Yeah, I've gone to a few libraries before, and what's nice about that is there's a lot of like outdoor space that isn't around people, so sometimes I am able to safely do my work outside there. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, we used libraries a lot too when we were traveling. So, especially in some rural areas where it's harder to find, the Starbucks or whatever, it's a lot easier to find libraries, which is kind of nice. Okay, this one is about finding free camping. what are the apps that Tina uses to find free camping? But I'm sure if anyone else has apps that they use to find free camping, that would also be welcome.
I made a video that's posted if you look on the Right State Recs YouTube or Facebook or Instagram. But the ones that I use are freecampsites.net. It's not actually an app. Free Roam, The Dirt, and Campendium.
Very cool. Tina, do you think you could even just type those? I don't know, although you have the chat open. If you do, that might be helpful for people to actually see. And I'll say too, when we were traveling, we looked a lot for national forest land. That's a really, really good tip because you're allowed to camp for free on national forests. I mean, obviously double check in the local region, especially because of COVID. There might be some things that kind of change sometimes, but national forest land is great for finding free places to camp. I don't know, Amber or Shannon, if you guys have any tips either as well for finding the free camping spots.
I mean, Walmart's always kind of my last resort. But I also stayed at rest stops a lot just because I knew I might leave like an hour just to get outside of the city and then, on my way to another place that I know I was going to have a spot. So I'd always just plan on a rest stop a lot. But yeah, National Forest is probably like my favorite.
Yeah, they're nice. Another thing we found when we were traveling out west is that during the off season, there were a lot of campgrounds that typically would be like $5 a night or something that were technically like the bathhouses or something were closed. And so you could just camp there for free as well. I remember thinking it was a lot less expensive to find camping places out west than it was when we did a similar trip in the Southeast a couple seasons later.
Yep.
So another question coming in, any tips for traveling with pets?
Yeah. My dog went with me everywhere I went. So my van's big enough that I had an exhaust fan and it was insulated and it's very shaded. So I'd have the window in the front down. If I had to leave her for a couple hours, I'd have that exhaust fan and it kind of creates like a wind tunnel. So it actually stays really cool in my van. Like even when it's really hot out. But my dog kind of went with me everywhere. She loved it. There pretty much wasn't a spot that, I always went to like dog friendly places, like, if there's a restaurant or a bar or brewery that she'd go into, I'd always bring her. And of course, she loved the attention that she got from everybody. I think it's way better than, going to work at 9 to 5 and where the dog has to stay at home for, those 9 hours. So.
And then I've traveled with mine too. For like pit stops, I like Love's because they have a dog park there. So I let her be able to run around for a bit. So I usually, stop, get gas, let her run around, and then I can go inside and grab stuff. And then if I'm in my car, I just have the back seat. She can lay down there and she's perfectly fine. And then for hotels, there's one, it's a Marriott hotel, and they allow your dog for free. And then they even give you like a goodie bag of like treats and poop bags and all that stuff, and then they can give you bowls and all that as well. So it's nice that they don't charge. I'm trying to think the name of it, but I'll type in the chat once I think of the brand of the hotel.
Cool. And I just realized I'm going back to a couple questions ago in terms of free camping, but I think actually the Walmart option, I think I just heard recently that they are actually changing their policy on not allow people to stay in their parking lots. So maybe
I know you can.
And they'll like tell me if it's allowed, and then they'll tell me like the designated spot that it is allowed at. Then I avoid those midnight knocks.
Or Cracker Barrel, you can park in their parking lot as well.
Sorry, I love Cracker Barrel parking lots.
Yes, and they're always so friendly. You can just walk in, bathroom, get some breakfast to go if you need to. But yeah, they're always very good about it.
I've also done a Home Depot and Lowe's. There are never really any issues because nobody really they don't really care. Also church parking lots, because they're very forgiving. Nobody's ever there except for on Sundays. And I've never had any issue parking at church parking lots either.
I will tell you, the only time I had an issue parking at a church parking lot is when I was actually parking at one to sleep overnight with, I was dropping my husband off in an airport like 3 hours from where we were working, and his flight left at an ungodly hour early in the morning. And so we went down the night before. We're planning to just bandit camp, found a church parking lot, but I locked the keys in the car and we were out of it. This was at like 10 o'clock at night. And so we had to go around to the neighborhood, like knocking on doors, being like, we're kind of like just in the church parking lot at 10 o'clock at night. It was so embarrassing. Lo and behold, we managed to knock on a cop's door. Talk about privilege right here, but he was just sort of like, oh yeah, I got a snake hook or whatever those things are called, that just, you know, he was more than excited to get us out.
I've done that twice.
Oh. You do what you got to do. Eat your humble pie and figure it out. Okay, so, this is Amber. Marriott Aloft hotels are dog friendly and don't cost extra for a pet. Cool, very awesome. Well, we're approaching close to the end of our time here. Do any of you guys have any final words of wisdom to wish our lovely viewers well on their potential future adventures?
I say go for it. You know, if you want to work on the road, go for it. I even had a friend whose corporate job wasn't remote, and she asked her boss saying, hey, I can make this possibility remote. Let me give it a shot. And now her job's remote. So even if you don't have a remote job at the moment, ask. It doesn't hurt.
Absolutely. And now more than ever, these, you know, we've seen what is possible.
Exactly.
You only regret the leaps you don't take. So I just say go for it. Have fun, even if, you know, you won't regret it because you're going to have a great story in the end. So.
I'd say take advantage of the people that you know, places that you haven't seen or talked to, or even like I've talked to family members or like family friends that I hadn't spoken before or had not seen me since I was like 1 year old. And those have been some of my best memories of just being able to like go and visit these people and talk to them for 3 hours and hear their stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, super cool. And I'll say in my experience as well, like when my husband and I decided to do it, one, I will say that for 2 people, an Astrovan is too small. It's just too small. But I will also say, yeah, that the sense of just go for it. You know, it did feel like a big jump for us to actually just go out and do it. But that 1.5 years, man, those are memories that we will never, never, never regret having. In some ways, we feel a little spoiled because we look back with such fondness to that time. But we also, I mean, because it was the 2 of us, we were able to work through some, you know, shared space issues that has served us well now. We know as climbers that washing your feet is just like a necessity. Yeah, and like many of you have mentioned, yeah, those memories are just, they're pretty special, pretty important. So I don't know if the Adventure Summit Metro Park staff wants to pop in here to do any final words or how we're ending this. Oh, thanks, Sue. She says, thank you all. Admire your wanderlust and passion for adventure.
Awesome. Thank you, panelists, for being here today and taking the time to share this insightful information. We appreciate you so much. And everybody else, thank you for taking the time to come to our Adventure Speaker Series, Wander While You Work. We hope you learned some great information for you to take on your own adventures. And we hope that you continue to come to our next 5 Adventure Speaker Series. Next week is Broken Pieces with Stacy Boone, who talks about a major injury she received on the trail, on the Oregon Desert Trail. So we're really excited for that. If you like the panel aspect of our Adventure Speaker Series, I invite you to join us on April 15th for the Adventure Color Gap, Diversity in the Great Outdoors. And the panel will be designed like today, where you have options to ask questions to various different panelists. Thank you so much. Any questions, go to theadventuresummit.com, and we appreciate you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.